Doesn't it feel like the silver price should be at least $50, $60? What about gold? $2,500, $2,600. But we keep getting these messages that everything's so great in the world. Everything's so wonderful. Jobs are great. The GDP is great. What else do we get? Just the world is great, right? We're living in this Bidenomics environment. But is that a big problem for us? I would say yes, as silver and gold investors. It's creating a problem. It's pushing down on the price of gold and silver. We heard from the Fed this week. We know, right? Now, if we peel the covers back on what's going on out there, do we learn something different? And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to peel the covers back on the banking system. We'll peel the covers back on the supposed great, awesome job market. And we'll talk about how that has impacted the silver price and gold price, but also what we can expect as we head into the remainder of the year. Thank you so much for being here. Super chats are super appreciated. Thumbs up. If you could give this video a like, will help get the news out to more people. And of course, you can subscribe and come back every day because we'll always be here in the basement, us. That includes you. That's why they called it YouTube, and it's free to subscribe. Don't forget to turn on the bell notification. So the big news story of yesterday, let's just cover that right off the bat. And again, everything is so wonderful in the world, right? No, why would anybody want to hold on to silver and gold, right? I mean, silver and gold, they've just been that timeless asset that have helped people, a safe harbor, a way to preserve wealth during uncertain geopolitical times. Why? Why would anybody want it? I mean, there's nothing going on in the world, right? Only a war in the Ukraine, which seems to be heating up. Only big tension with China. But on top of it, the hottest topic right now is absolutely what's going on in the Middle East. And yesterday, right, did you find it a little suspicious that right when the stock market closed yesterday, the United States launched an attack on the Iranian proxies? Now, we didn't attack Iran. That's critical. We didn't bomb any targets inside of Iran. And what I'm hearing from the analysts that really know what's going on in the Middle East is we don't want war directly with Iran. Some people think we do. This is not a show where we're going to debate that, but nonetheless, we've had now this is our second wave of attacks that the United States has conducted in the Middle East. Yesterday at 4 p.m., right when the stock market closed, 4 p.m. Eastern time, Central Command forces conducted airstrikes in Iraq and Syria against Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, Quds Force, and affiliated militia groups. U.S. military forces struck more than 85 targets with numerous aircraft, including long-range bombers. They used the B-1 bomber from the United States. Two key things. We don't want war. We don't want anything, hardship to support the gold and silver price. But we're going to talk about what's going on. Number one, people are saying this was one of the most telegraphed attacks in the history of warfare. Like we talked about it. We said, we're going to wait till the weather's good. There was gave them 4 or 5 days to prepare for the fact that we were likely going to attack them. The other key thing here is that we didn't directly attack Iran. That would have been a major, major escalation. Now, I'm not downplaying the situation. Civilians were killed. We don't ever want to hear about, hardship or death, right? But we're just talking about what's going on. But if we had actually attacked Iran, that would have been a much larger escalation of the situation. We'll keep a close eye. We know that that's just an unbelievable deal that's going on right now in the Middle East. What about the banks? Did you hear this week? Okay, we have New York. Remember the bank crisis? Remember that little bank crisis that when you combine the dollar value of banks that failed just 10, 11 months ago was bigger than the worst year of the great financial crisis? What did we learn this week? How the health of the banking system. And then we're going to talk about the reverse repo, because this has a lot to do with the precious metals markets. Remember last year when we had the banking crisis, right? You couldn't get silver. You couldn't get gold. Well, we're seeing a little bubbling, a little percolating of maybe what's to come. All right, let's back up, slow down here. The bailout program that the Fed and the Treasury came up with last year when we had this banking crisis is being terminated on March 11th. That could cause stress in the banking sector. We know the whole commercial real estate thing that's going on. We also have the reverse repo program. We're going to touch on that in a little bit. I'm going to make it real easy, guys. We're going to learn, and if I'm wrong, you can tell me. But what we do know right now is that this week the regional banks started to show like a percolation of trouble. You know, when you turn the crock pot on when you're making your world famous chili or stew or whatever you make in your crock pot, it takes a little while, then it starts to bubble. Well, that's what's going on because we had New York Community Bank, NYCB, known for rescuing assets of the faltering Signature Bank last year. So this big bank in New York, their stock dropped like 50%. I looked at a chart of it. I don't know if it was all this week, but basically the stock, I think a big chunk of it was this week. The stock of this bank cratered, okay? And they, coincidentally, were the bank that took on all the assets of one of the banks that failed a year ago, Signature Bank, all right? Here, it says this week, the stock took a dramatic 40% dive. 46%, I'm sorry, following an unforeseen net loss report. If this leads to more issues in the banking industry, many could look to gold as a safe haven. I don't know where I got that from, but whoever wrote that, I want to give you credit. So we are seeing stress and turmoil starting to percolate again in the banking sector just when the Fed is going to pull their rescue plan, their bailout plan, the bank term funding program that will end on March 11th. And on top of that, we're still seeing large amounts of money leaving the banking sector going into money markets. Is it because people are afraid of the banking sector? Is it because they can make a lot more return, 5% in a money market? Why would they want to keep their money? Maybe the bank's paying them 2 or 3% when they can put their money into a money market. The banking sector is under stress, and as we go into this year, it sure appears, excuse me, that the stress is not going to get much better. Okay, so the U.S. banks see massive deposit flight, the biggest since Silicon Valley Bank, as the bank, just as the Fed ends the bank term funding program. People are pulling their money out of banks and putting it into money markets, okay? Now let's talk about the other big elephant in the room. And maybe this is a little confusing to you. My hands up. It's confusing to me. And I apologize. I've been sick lately, so I will be coughing a little bit during this live stream, but I will do my best to put the microphone on mute. You might see me just keel over here live on a live stream. Let's hope not. But let's talk about the reverse repo. That's that program that the Fed put in place right after the C-19 crisis. And all the big analysts, right, all of them are saying that we're seeing strange behavior in the reverse repo. It's a fund that the Fed has. It's kind of a slush fund. Let me explain it to you. Hold on. In that it's almost out of money, and that it could run out of money here in the coming months. Here's a chart. Okay, that is the Fed's reverse repo program. You can see at one point it was as high as $2.5 trillion. Today, we sit at $500 billion. Now, what was the Fed's reverse repo program, and why is it important? Let me explain it to you. Here, I'll hold this up while I explain it to you. Okay? Well, it's real simple. It's real simple. The Fed printed money. Remember that during the C-19 crisis. 40% of the U.S. dollars that were ever printed were printed during the C-19 crisis. All the banks had massive amounts of cash. They didn't know what to do with it. And the Fed was like, this is a problem. It's going to create inflation worse than we already have, and we were already having inflation. So the Fed set up what's called a reverse repo program, a reverse repurchase program. What that allowed was the banks The banks gave the Fed all the cash, all this trillions of dollars, $2.5 trillion in cash. They gave that cash to the Fed. The Fed gave them treasuries, okay? The Fed made it very attractive to the banks to do that. That took all that cash out of the economy because we already had crazy inflation. So when the Fed, sorry guys, took all that cash, they wound up with a slush fund of $2.5 trillion, which you can see right here, right? That was just last year, $2.5 trillion. Well, now, because it's a repo, reverse repo, which means repurchase, now the Fed is saying, we want to reverse it. We're going to give you your cash back and you're going to give us the treasuries because that's what you're contractually obligated to do. So here, over the last year, $2 trillion has come out of that program, okay, and gone into the banks. Why is that important? Because the banks got that $2 trillion and the Fed wasn't going to let them give it back to them. The banks were like, well, what are we going to do? The most attractive thing for the banks to do was to buy U.S. treasuries. That's who's been buying all these U.S. treasuries, or a big portion of it, during the last year. The problem is it's about ready to run out of money, right? And you can listen to guys like Rafi Farber and other people that know how this works as well. That slush fund is going to run out of money in the coming couple months. The issue then is who is going to buy the U.S. treasuries? It could create big, big trouble in the treasury market. So it's going to be interesting that we've got this reverse repo, which was really a form of QE, right? We talk about the smoke and mirrors of the Fed, right? So the Fed was pushing all this cash back into the banks. It was like a delayed QE, a delayed money printing, if that makes sense. And that money over the last year, that $2 trillion that the Fed was giving back to the banks was used to buy treasuries. Am I right? Do you agree with that? It's like a delayed QE. But now, right, there's only 20% of it left, right? Only 500 billion of what was 2.5 trillion 1 year ago. It could cause big trouble in the treasury markets. Is this weird or what? Right at the same time that the bank term funding program is eliminated, that bailout program that allowed the banks to give treasuries to, it's crazy what we're heading into, but I just wanted to make you aware of that because that is a major issue that the Treasury Department and our old friend Janet Yellen, like, who's going to buy your treasuries? The banks aren't going to have any money, right? Oh, I got to ring the bell. We got 100 thumbs up. Thank you guys. And I think the other thing, right, this problem that we've had as silver and gold investors, all this greatness that's everywhere, this shows you that everything's not great, right? Without that $2 trillion over the last year, would the U.S. Treasury have been able to borrow all that money? It's the problem that we've been facing, the headwind we've been facing, that I think when we look under the covers, right, at what's going on in the banking system on their own, and then the banking system as that's related to the Fed's pulling their rescue program, and the Fed slush fund, right, that they had, that delayed QE is what I'm calling it, the reverse repo program, that's going to be running dry as well, right? It's kind of like the American consumer. They've racked up their credit cards to the max. Right? They've spent all their savings. It's going to be an interesting year. And I was just talking with CoinShop Chris. We'll have a video coming out later today. Not on top of that, it's an election year, right? We've got the weirdest election in the history of the country coming up, 2024, and Russia is heading up the BRICS, right? And we know the whole de-dollarization thing. Oh my gosh, so we've had some problems, silver, gold, precious metal mining stock investors, but doesn't it seem when we take a step back and look at all these different trees individual, we start to see a forest of interesting scenarios developing as we head through the rest of this year? I don't know, but I want to tell you one thing right now. I appreciate you being here. Please give this a thumbs up. It will help the channel, so it'd be a nice thing for you to do, and it'll help get the word out to more people. Subscribe, please. It's free. All the content is free. Not like I could charge for this anyway, right? But nonetheless, it's free to come hang out in the basement with me, but it's not just me, it's you. Right? And it's a lot of individual people like you that are really top-notch, smart people. So please subscribe to the channel, hit the bell notification, and super chats and super thanks, whatever they're called, the donations are so much appreciated as we run this channel trying to support a family here. Wow, Metal Seer, thank you. 83% of those considering buying a house think this is a bad time to buy. High price and high inflation, or high interest. Yeah, it is. I mean, it is, right? It depends on what the Fed does. I mean, hey, we could see, I agree with you. It's not a good time to be buying a house, but I could be wrong. You could be wrong. That 83% could be wrong. It kind of depends. Let's say 5 years from now, if the Fed has to continue to devalue the dollar, which in some ways you could make a mathematical case for that, the house that cost $400,000 now could be worth $2 million. Who knows, right? That's when we're talking about silver at $150 per ounce, potentially, guys, right? I got to give it to them. They've done a good job of keeping this clown show together. The smoke and mirrors, have been very effective. But again, this problem that we've been facing, because we bought silver and gold to protect our wealth. And let's be real, silver over the last 3 years hasn't done a whole lot. While the cost of everything else has gone up pretty dramatically, silver hasn't gone up as much. But in the long run, I certainly believe it will. The problem that we have is the illusion that everything is good out there. Be prepared. Be prepared next week. They already started, but we're going to have the Federal Reserve clown show will be out. Remember, what do you think when we talk about the Federal Reserve? They were hawkish this week, okay? They were hawkish. They threw a wrench in the machine of higher silver and gold prices. Jerome Powell was hawkish, kind of poo-pooed any idea that we would have a rate cut in March. And just back in December, the market was pricing almost a 90% chance that we would have a rate cut in March. Now, CoinShop Chris thinks there's a possibility of an emergency Fed meeting in February. We'll see. We'll see if CoinShop Chris is right. But we do know one thing for sure. They're going to roll out the clown show this week, right? I call it the clown show. The Fed governors. We got Fed governors in St. Louis, Kansas City, Boston, Richmond, San Francisco, Cleveland, I think, Philadelphia. Anyway, they all go out and the Fed has become nothing more, right? The dollar's not based on real money anymore. So the Fed now has really become more of a public relations firm. Have you noticed that? Think about that. The Federal Reserve, whose job should be to manage our monetary system, maintain the wealth and value of American families. Jerome Powell said that during his press conference. I'm acutely aware of the stress that high inflation has caused on the American family. No, you're not, Jerome. You're concerned about the ultra wealthy. That's the fact, okay? I don't believe you. That's just my opinion. Maybe you feel differently. Do you feel like Jerome Powell's looking out for you? Nonetheless, right? Nonetheless, they've become nothing but a public relations firm because what they're selling is really pretty much, based on what? Nothing, right? So they've got to be a public relations firm. Think back 20 years ago. I want you to think back 30 years ago, 40 years ago, right? You're around my age. Do you remember the Fed being that big of a deal? And in particular, do you remember the Fed governors, right? We used to have this guy in St. Louis. He's gone now. He's out to pasture, Boulard. And when Boulard would talk, the price of gold would go down by like $50 an ounce, right? These guys were nothing 20 years ago. They're like celebrities. Everybody knows their names on CNBC. Oh, Cleveland Fed, whatever, and the Richmond Fed president said this. they always have these fancy luncheons, and then they make a speech, and then and it's like top, breaking news on Bloomberg terminals, and it moves the market, and it's a bunch of BS. So I want you to be prepared, because this week, right? I don't know. I was talking with Susie this morning, and we were talking about the gold price, and like it held up. Do you feel like that? I mean, here's the bad news is the problem that we have is that this make-believe strong economy, make-believe strong jobs numbers, make-believe strong gross domestic product, where in the fourth quarter, a big portion of the gross domestic product gains were from recreational vehicle sales. We're fighting against a public relations machine that's trying to convince us in the world that everything's good. That's a problem for the silver price and gold price. It's going to continue this week while it's going to be headline after headline from Fed governors saying, oh, we can stay higher for longer, and we need to continue the fight on inflation. It's all nominal, not real, nominal BS, right? I'll tell you what's going to happen in the end. We're going to continue to have high inflation, and we're going to have real interest rates, right? And the real interest rate is the inflation rate. The predominant going interest rate, and you subtract inflation. That's the real interest rate. We're going to have negative real interest rates. We're going to have inflation. Let's say they keep rates at 5%. But if inflation's at 10%, that allows the Fed to inflate away the debt. We're going to have negative real interest rates again really soon. Right now, supposedly, we have positive real interest rates, meaning you can make 5% on your money in a money market, and inflation is supposedly only 3%. The only way this system works going forward is with negative real interest rates. So the Fed may say, well, they could even, it's all about that relationship between inflation and the interest rate. So if the inflation rate gets above the interest rate, okay, you got negative real interest rates. And that's the environment that we will be in the coming years. And they'll say, well, we raised rates, right? We raised rates to 7%. Yeah, well, that's okay, though, because inflation is like 10%. Well, we raised rates to 10%. Yeah, but inflation's now at 20%. And that's the spiral. That's one, I believe, very, very realistic, viable way that we're going to see the monetary system managed going forward, because we're past the point of no return. Boy, I feel like I'm doom and gloom, but it's just mathematics. Mathematics show no forgiveness on the altar of truth. Thank you for the thumbs up. When we get to 200, to celebrate our little party this morning, I will ring the cowbell. I know, what a big treat. You're probably like, oh my gosh, he's going to ring that cowbell. Anyway, I got off track. Susie and I were talking. Gold knows what I just talked about, the scenario that's unfolding. I love this thought. And this is an original one that we had here in the basement, guys. I love this thought, right? The Fed's been around for 100 years, the United States for a couple hundred years. The Fed's pulling all these tricks, right? Don't forget, silver and gold have been around for 3, 4, 5,000 years. They're a lot older and a lot wiser than the U.S. dollar, the paper U.S. dollar, the fiat U.S. dollar, the unicorn fart dust U.S. dollar. Make believe, right? Funny money. And gold and silver will sniff it out. They know, right? Mathematics do. It's true. Not even God can change the fact that 2 + 2 = 4, right? The math is there. So just hang on. Back to me and Susie. I'm sorry, I keep getting off track. Susie and I were talking this morning, and it's like, look at what happened this week, right? I mean, next week, I know I said this last week. Last week I said and told you guys right now, I said, hey guys, I missed a super chat. I apologize. Hold on. And pop out chat. Hold on. I apologize. I made a mistake. Let's see here. Oh, there we go. Metal Seer. Average American household owes $10,000 in credit card debt. Yeah, that means they're paying about $3,000 a year in interest. Almost $60,000 in student loan debt. $250,000 almost in mortgage debt, and $22,000 in auto loans. Wow. Wow. Guys, I want to talk about that. Thank you, Metal Seer, and thank you for the super chat. Thanks to all you guys for the super chats, super generosity. But when it comes to the gold price is sniffing this out. The gold price is smart, and the gold price this week, I hope you realize this. A week ago, I sat here and said, guys, we could be talking about 1950 gold next weekend, which is right now. If you had told me back then what the news would be this week, right? I think we'd already gotten the great GDP recreational vehicle numbers, but that the Fed was going to say what they were going to say, that we were going to get economic readings like we got. And then the cherry on top, and we talked about this. I told you the jobs number on Friday was the biggest number in the history of the world, right? There'll be more in the future, don't you worry. I would think that we would be sitting right now at 1940, 1930 gold price, and gold has been strong, very, very strong, and gold is the trendsetter, the bellwether of the precious metals. So let's not discount that. Let's be grateful. Now, next week, sometimes it takes a while for that stuff to set in. You know, maybe next week, again, it wouldn't shock me if we're sitting here, you know, gold on the spot market right now is at $2,040 per ounce. I wouldn't be shocked if next week right now we're talking about gold at 1940. But that's not the end of the world. That is not the end of the world. The gold has been building a very strong base. Now, if gold gets into the low 1800s, you know, silver gets to be $19, $18 an ounce. I really can't see that happening. I really can't see. So, yeah, Metal Seer, unbelievable, right? 10,070s. Average American household has hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. Right? And that's the engine of the U.S. economy. This great economy, consumer sentiment. I mean, everybody here, this is great. I'm going to say this to you. Nobody expected such a strong economy. Nobody expected such great jobs numbers. Nobody expected the Fed to magically be able to control inflation. Nobody expected it, right? Gold's not buying it. Silver's not necessarily buying it either, but nobody expected that. But what they're forgetting to talk about is sky-high housing costs. And that goes with what Metal Seer said earlier. And rent. Maxed out credit cards. Maxed out all the other debt that Metal Seer talks about. Oh, and by the way, excuse me, let's talk about 34 trillion and growing. Pull up the U.S. debt clock when we're done here in debt, okay? Metal Seer, you're being extremely generous with me this morning. Thank you. Did I miss another super chat? Those families probably have no savings and no investment. Yes, I agree. They don't. No, they don't. They don't. You know, I talk to people that I know and I work with that have kids, right, trying to raise a family now. One of them told me, I'll never forget, it's like 3. She's like, I don't know why my checking account never has it. My checking account never has money in it. The money's always gone. I'm like, it's because trying to raise kids and the constant need for $20, $30, people don't have the money and prices are way, way higher, way higher. You guys know who Bill Gross is? Let's listen to what Bill Gross had to say. He's the bond king, okay? Before I do that, while I still have my voice, I want to say thank you to channel sponsor Pimbex, Pimbex. They've got great prices on a wide selection of silver, gold, and platinum. They got some new Kookaburra coins there that are really pretty, beating everybody's price. Coin Shop Chris and I talked about that during our video this morning. But if you want to buy bullion online, you want to make sure it's a company you trust, right? And that you are getting the best price. Why not get more metal for your money? A lot of times with Pimbex, if you're going to buy 20 ounces or 50 ounces of silver, You can get the exact same silver from the exact same stuff from Pembex, right? Whatever, American Silver, Eagles, whatever that you can get from one of the big online name brand bullion dealers. You get the exact same thing from Pembex, but because their prices are lower, you get the exact same thing, and you can get yourself a couple extra bonus coins as well. You really can save money. I would recommend you check out Pembex next time you're considering buying bullion. Pimbex, Pembex.com. And thank you, Pembex, for sponsoring the channel. I feel so good about having Pembex as a sponsor because I have worked with them, and everybody from the channel who's worked with them has sent me emails, has been without exception positive. So it feels great. Okay. Same thing with Fortuna Silver, a stock that I own. I only will take sponsorships from companies that I own or work with. I don't own all of Fortuna, but I own a little chunk of it. And I love the management. I love the way they manage their finances, the way they deliver on their projects. They have 5 operating gold and silver mines spread around the world at this point. Thank you also to Fortuna. You can check them out at fortunasilver.com. Hello, Leanne. Is our gold and silver safe in the IRA vaults if there's a grid down or a cyber attack? I am worried. Well, Leanne, I don't want to worry you further. I would generally say yes, right? It's that balance between, like, I keep my silver that I own at an offsite location. It's that balance between, do you want to keep it at your house or do you want to keep it in a vault? Maybe a mixture is the best answer. Most of the vaults have processes in place, right? And I don't know the specifics, and I'm not going to talk about specific vaults, but that's their business, is to make you feel comfortable about having your silver and gold bullion in the vault, right? So what I would say is talk to them and tell them, hey, I'm nervous about this. What if this and I would imagine that they should be able to allay your fears. So that's what I would recommend, is calling whoever is vaulting your silver or gold and asking them and telling them, like, hey, I'm worried if this were to happen or that were to happen. And they can probably explain to you the processes they have in place. And if they don't make you feel better, then it may be a good idea to consider moving it to somewhere that you do feel better. I hope that answers your question. But I do believe that most of the big vaulting companies have processes in place to address the concerns that you have. So I would reach out and talk to them. All right, guys. Oh, Bill Gross. Let's listen with the Bond King. This is interesting because, again, right, this great economy, this great world has been a problem for us silver and gold investors. But is it really all that great? Here's what he says. I'll read you some of the highlights. You're going to get a kick out of this. He says the U.S.'s, and this is Bill Gross. He's like Warren Buffett type level guy. The U.S.'s $34 trillion debt and deficit will drive inflation, like we talked about earlier, right? We're going to be in a situation, guys, where the Fed's going to be like, we're fighting inflation. We raised rates to 7%. Well, that's great, but the inflation rate is 12%. The inflation rate is going to be higher than the interest rate. It's the only way the system works. All right, back to Bill Gross. 34 trillion debt deficit will drive inflation and worsen, he says, quote unquote, listen to this, like global warming, over the next 10 years. That's according to Bond King, Mr. Gross, Bill Gross. High U.S. debt levels will become an alarming problem this decade, Bill Gross told CNBC. Debt will compound like global warming, he said, as the U.S. continues to lean on deficit spending. And is there any, have you heard any politicians talk about addressing the fact that our government is spending $2 trillion a year more than it's bringing in? The Fed could fund rising deficits but this will only spur more inflation. We are in a self-feeding prophecy right now. Prophecy? Doom loop? Doom loop's more like it. Hey, we got the 200 thumbs up, you guys. This is a celebration of all of us coming together. We're going to ring the cowbell. And a little more for Jake. Hey, it's a big deal that you are here this morning. I've already begged you to subscribe, give this a thumbs up. Certainly appreciate the super chats. That goes a long way to help support the channel. But there's another critical component to this channel that we need to recognize. Yes, I'm in Susie's house. It's Ron's basement, but Susie's house. So thank you, Susie. But also thank you to all the moderators. Coin Shop Chris, Jake from Jake's Custom Parts, Craig, we have Annie Oakley and Sassy Silver. And if you guys would type 8 into the chat, 8 is great. And the moderate, for those who moderate, I had a rhyme made for that. 888 is great for those who moderate, and our moderators are great. So please type some 8s and say thank you to the moderators. Hello, Jim M. Hello, Leanna. Snakebite. Good to see you, buddy. Haven't seen you for a while. So it's an interesting scenario. Let me ask you, do you think that the economy, I want to ask you a question right now, what they're based on what they're telling us, okay, let's just set the context for you. The GDP expanded by 3% in the fourth quarter. Did you buy a recreational vehicle? Okay, GDP expanded by 3% in the fourth quarter. That in January, the economy created, 350,000 new high-quality jobs. Yes, you too can have a car that reeks of Big Macs because you can work for Dine Dash delivering Big Macs. Nonetheless, right, the economy is great. All these numbers coming out. The Fed, soft landing, no recession. Do you think the economy, do you believe what you're being told? If you do, type good. If you don't, type bad. I'm just curious. I don't believe it. That doesn't mean you don't have to believe it. I got an email from a guy or a comment on one of the videos telling me that I was misleading you about the jobs numbers, that the jobs numbers are what they are and they're good and that I need to check my sources and blah, blah, blah. Well, I hear there's a great article on Zero Hedge. I heard Peter Grandich talking about it last night. I hear everybody saying, oh yeah, the job numbers are great if you factor in seasonal adjustments, if you factor in, what was the other one? Oh, that there's all mostly part-time jobs, because all we get is news that big companies, good companies are laying off. Bad, 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 very bad. F-150 Big Mac. Craig Edmonds, bad. Yeah, I don't know. And we got Bill Gross. You may not know, everybody knows Warren Buffett and Steve Jobs, and although he's passed away, who's the guy? Oh my gosh, who's the guy that started Microsoft? Bill Gates, right? But there's other people that are much smarter, guys like Bill Gross, Jeffrey Gunlock, right? These guys are the real brains, and they're sounding the alarm. Ray Dalio, right? The world's biggest hedge fund he set up, right? These are the smart guys. They're all, what does it mean when they're all sounding the alarm? Mathematics, right? Again, mathematics shows no forgiveness on the altar of truth. To me, it means we could be in for some very, very interesting times, okay? Costco. We haven't talked about Costco for a whole week. Costco selling gold. Costco selling silver. Don't forget that in the most recently reported quarter, just one quarter of a year, Costco reported they sold $100 million worth of gold. Well, then my friend RB, whose same initials that I have, sent me an email last night with a picture. He said, I went on the Costco website to do some shopping, and this is what's up there. And it's a bunch of, here, I think I have a picture of it. They're selling gold by the gram now at Costco. Hold on, let me show you. You got to see this. Well, anyway, I'll put my finger. Look, see? That's Costco. Gold by the gram at Costco. What is that? Costco shoppers are smart. It is percolating, guys. I don't know about Silver Eagles. They were selling. My neighbor Dan was keeping me posted. Like, he would look on the thing and be like, "Oh, they have Silver Eagles. They don't have Silver Eagles." All we know is that Costco is selling a lot of precious metals. Costco, all right, one of the nation's biggest retailers. Right? And Costco shoppers are smart. Everybody I know that goes to Costco, have you experienced that? And I'm putting myself down, and I've never set foot in a Costco. But all the, like my friend Jim M and Dan and people that I know that are like fans of Costco, I used to be a huge Aldi fan, and I still am. And I think we have a Sam's membership. But Costco people are smart. Right? They're like upper middle class a lot of times. And if you notice that, and they are buying silver and gold at what has been, from what we know so far, a breakneck pace. Okay? So that other problem, what a problem. What a bunch. We talked about how Friday's job number was going to be the biggest report that we got in the history of the universe. Well, at least in all of 2024. I mean, are you kidding me? They really are trying to get you to believe that the U.S. economy created 350,000 new jobs, quote unquote. I mean, just look at the list of companies that have laid off. Hasbro, 20%. Spotify, Levi's, 15%. Xerox, 15%. Wayfair, eBay, 10%, PayPal, 7%. This is just a part. BlackRock, 3%. Citigroup laying off 20,000 employees. Salesforce, right? That's a big software company out in, I think, San Francisco. 7,000 people. Macy's, I mean, they're trying to get us to believe, right? And it's a problem for us, Silver. I mean, this illusion that's going on right now, that they're painting, that everything's good, you should be happy, right? Joe Biden wants to get reelected. I mean, I don't know. It almost, do you ever get the feeling like it's going to make the eventual resolution of all this all the more worse, right? CoinShop Chris and I were talking this morning. Think of yourself like this, right? Like let's say we're all on the Titanic together. We're all on that first journey of the Titanic across the ocean, right? We start to notice there's some stuff going on. Some of the staff is acting funny and we start to smell a little smoke. You know, where there's smoke, there might be fire. We're the type of people that got on the first lifeboat. Right? Like, you know what? Just to be on the safe side, I'm going to get in the lifeboat. So we're the silver and gold investors. We're in the first lifeboat. We've floated away now. We're a couple hundred yards away from the Titanic, right? We're on the silver and gold boat. We're looking back at the boat, and we can see, because we're far away, the people on the boat don't realize this, but it's now noticeably starting to lean, right? They don't realize it. People are still actually partying and dancing. You've heard those stories. But we got out first. We got to safety first. And we're out there 200 yards away. When those people that are on that, when the boat really starts to go and they're like, oh my God, there's no more boats available. Because just like the Titanic, right? They didn't have enough lifeboats. There, unfortunately, is a finite level of silver and gold in the world. And a lot of people like you and me, wait, there's somebody else wait a minute, hold on. There's somebody else who's been buying a record amount of precious metals. Oh yeah, only the world's most sophisticated, the ones with all the inside information, the ones who set the rules for the world monetary and financial system, the world central banks. They also are getting on the gold and silver lifeboat. What does that tell us, right? What does that tell us? To me, that tells us that maybe we're early, okay? Maybe we're wrong. Don't forget, right? I do not have a crystal ball. I do have a calculator. I'm so glad you're here. We just came up with a new saying. Metal Seer, thank you again. Jobs reports, resorts. I want to go to a resort. Should break out full part-time. Yeah, no joke. Well, because the number of jobs, I get it written down somewhere. I think it was like there were actually a full-time job. When you look at there's a great article on Zero Hedge that breaks down all these. It's all a bunch of bunk. Actually, they say that in January, the real number of jobs, there was actually a job loss, and that there is most every January. But they do all these seasonal adjustments, and it's all alchemy. BS, right? Like Peter Grandage says, the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, the BLS. He says they should drop the L, just the BS. Right? So, oh yeah, there's our new saying. Hey, basement dwellers, we got a new one, right? We don't have crystal balls, but we do have calculators. I like that one. We have calculators, right? We have the ability to add and subtract and basic understanding of mathematics. It's going to be a crazy, crazy year. I mean, we've been pummeled as silver and gold, especially precious metal. The precious metal mining stocks, guys, it's like nothing anyone has ever seen. I'm not giving financial advice. I'm not, stocks are risky. Everything's risky. Putting your money in a bank account is risky, right? But these precious metal mining stocks are valued like they're going out of business. It's unbelievable right now. So if you've been invested in the stocks like I have, it has been a particularly treacherous couple years. Silver has been pretty painful as well. Gold's actually done okay. If you're just a guy who has, or gal who has physical gold, you're doing okay. But man, these mining stocks, I mean, some of them, it's incredible. Like when I look at Fortuna, for instance, okay, again, I'm not giving financial advice, but when you look at all the assets of their company and then you deduct or you pay off all their debt, right, you come up with like $1.3 billion of assets with no debt because you've paid off the debt. The total value of the company is only $1 billion. I mean, the value of their assets after you pay off all the debt is more than the market cap of the company, and they're making positive free cash flow, and likely profits, right? Especially in this 2040, if gold stays where it is. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. You can buy some of these these are development companies with gold in the ground. First Mining Gold's another one I own. Summa Silver. You can buy it, like the value of the gold that you're getting in the ground. You're only paying like, I don't know. So like with First Mining Gold, I think like $6-7 an ounce for gold in the ground in Canada. Summa Silver has big silver deposits in Nevada, and you're getting it. I don't know what the number is, but you're paying like $1 or less for an ounce of silver. Sure, it's in the ground. There's a lot of things that could go wrong. There's a lot of work ahead to get that silver out of the ground, but still the valuation for silver in America, all right, is crazy. Silver Mountain down in Peru or Capitan in Mexico. I mean, it's really bizarre. Can we get to 300 thumbs up, guys? I'll stick it out. I mean, I promise I won't sing, okay? But please, let's get to 300 thumbs up. When we do that, where'd she go? Where'd it go? There, is that it right there? Oh, no, here it is. We'll ring the old gong, okay? We will ring the old gong. So it's been a problem. We have faced serious problems. The other thing that doesn't make sense, have you thought about this when it comes to the supposed great jobs number that they dumped on us yesterday? The ADP number, automatic data processing, they're like the biggest payroll processing company in the United States. Most companies use ADP to run their payroll. They have like the real data. Think about the real. I want you to think about this. Let's just talk about two companies, UPS and ADP. Okay, ADP runs the real payroll. They know like how many people are on payrolls. They can tell probably, and it's a private company, not a part of the government. Their numbers don't jive with the Bureau of Labor and Statistics. The household survey doesn't jive with the Bureau of Labor. It's like a make-believe. It's like fantasy land, you know? I mean, I don't know. It's frustrating. What other real number did we get this week to tell us how strong the economy is? We had UPS, United Parcel Service, right? The brown truck guys. And they, number one, announced massive layoffs, I think 12,000 employees, okay? And when they gave their quarterly report, they talked about how freight volumes year over year are down by like 8%. And that's, I mean, part of that could be just particular to their business, but that's even if you factor in that shows real numbers. Like big corporations can only lie to a certain extent. They can't lie to the extent that the government can. Right? UPS gets audited by a big four firm. They got to make sure their numbers are pretty much accurate. And they're warning, right, that the freight volumes are cratering. I'd say 8%. They're trying to redo their business, readjust their business. That's a real McCoy number. That's the real story about what's going on. So when we get this problem, okay, AI is decimating tech and clerk jobs, see tech layoffs. Yeah, right. That's another good point, right? AI can be used to do a lot of like coding, like base level coding that you used to have to hire somebody to do. So yes, Metal Seer, absolutely. I mean, when we look at what's going on out there, we don't find it to be as rosy as they're trying to tell us, and it's been a problem for us, right? But I feel like when we do pull the covers back on the jobs numbers, right? When we pull the covers back, what do we see, right? The jobs numbers are a bunch of BS, not from the BLS, from the BS. When we pull the covers back on the great GDP, and look at all the adjustments they made there. And what they did with that one, just so you know, here's some great insight. They used a price deflator, so they adjust those numbers based on they only used like a 1.2% inflation rate, is what I heard, to adjust the GDP numbers, right? They're saying that the price deflator was 1.2%. We know that in 2023, inflation was much, much higher than that. So they're trying to kill us, but we know when we look at the real jobs numbers, when we look at the real GDP, when we strip out recreational vehicle sales, right? We know when we strip away what the Fed is really doing, right? The Fed needs inflation to be higher than the interest rates. It's the only way the system works. We know that maybe it feels like, right, we've had trouble and problems right now, but as we move through this year, and then when we factor in two other facts, number one, the bifurcation that is occurring right now in the world, the BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Ethiopia, Egypt, and the United Arab Emirates. There's 10 of them now and 30 more countries that want to join. So we talked about looking under the covers on the GDP and the jobs and the Fed, but the world's bifurcating. The world's moving away from the US dollar, right? And it's crazy. And it's an election year, which is going to create all types of social, political craziness in this country. And on top of that, we factor in the fact that there are several, hard to say this, wars going on in the world right now. Woof. Does it start to feel like maybe silver and gold are a smart place to park some of our wealth and value? I think it is. Hey guys, we got to 300 thumbs up. I'm going to ring the gong. Don't forget, give this a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. You'll get new content every day. You can always come back here to the basement. We got 450 people here today. Sometimes we have 5, 6. There's always a good group of people that want to interact with you. And when you come here, right, you're part of the basement. You're a basement dweller. Thank you for the super chats, which have been super generous. Super chat, super thanks. Now, to celebrate, I know, I love this. 300 thumbs up. You got to listen. When I hit this thing, it keeps ringing. You are the most important part of the basement. Yes, you're a basement dweller when you come here. You love to talk about silver, gold, precious metal mining stocks. What we really want is some fun, some friendship, right? And try to discern what is going on out there in the world. We want to protect ourselves, protect our wealth. Thank you for joining us. On behalf of myself, Susie, CoinShop Chris, all the moderators, it's a big deal when you come here. We want you to come back, and we'll look forward to seeing you soon. Be nice to yourself. You deserve it, and I'll see you tomorrow.